Welcome, y'all. This is the PETM Racing Podcast for Thursday, June 4th, 2015. I am Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, no relation. I'm here with pregame engineer Andrew Sherwin. Sherwin, what's happening, buddy?
I tell you what, I'm glad it's Thursday.
I hear you, man. We finally, what did we spend? Maybe 5-10 minutes before this messing around with technology, and I think you've got some tape on your microphone there. But hey, the sound's a lot better this time than our first time, right?
Yeah, sounds good. I wish I could hear you through my headset, but we'll make it work.
Yeah, he's got it jerry-rigged up there with all kinds of speakers and microphones and everything else and video cameras and all the rest of it. But this time we can actually see each other. Kind of cool. So you might have heard that intro music. I'm going to post-edit it in so we didn't hear it here. But, hey, we got music now. We're like legit or something, you know?
I know. I think it sounds great.
Yeah.
I hope we get some permission for some music that we really, really like. But, it makes it sound official.
Yeah, right. And assuming I give all the right attributes, we won't get our butt suit off for the zero money that we're making off of this thing anyway.
Good plan.
Yeah. So you just came off of a little road trip there. Where were you at?
Upstate North Carolina for work.
Do you pass through Charlotte?
No, I didn't go through Charlotte. I actually avoid Charlotte like the plague, mostly because the corridor from Charlotte to Statesville, to Statesville on I-77 is a monster because of the, ironically, the NASCAR boom in Mooresville.
Okay. So, yeah, you said upstate around Winston area? Winston? Did I say Winston?
You might have said Winston, but you're pretty close. It's dead in the middle between Statesville and shout out to Petey Pablo and Winston on I-40.
Cool. So we'll start us off with a segment that we had last week. We kind of made fun of Sherwin for making a couple mistakes, and now it's my hand in the cookie jar here to go ahead and correct something. I think I said that Adam Sandler would be doing the command at Dover, and indeed, when I turned on the television, I was ready for that great command that he's so known for giving. And sure enough, it was this older gentleman and his wife. They actually gave a decent command for being, the corporate type folks that we sort of made fun of last time. But Adam Sandler will actually be doing New Hampshire, his home state. So we've got that a few weeks away to look forward to. So I'm excited about that still.
Well, I've got some screw-ups too. Or at least things I've been critical of myself for. So my screw-up was in saying that Lewis Hamilton didn't make the podium. He did. He did not get passed. He finished third. And the other thing that I noticed about myself is I say, if you didn't know or if you haven't been paying attention way too much, I got to curtail that.
That's a good one. I like that. If you didn't know, if you hadn't been paying attention, we might be having some drinks here right now. Sherwin, what you drinking?
I've got some White Label Jim Beam and ginger ale.
Oh, look at that. The breakfast of champions. Sherwin is well known for taking a sip right as I am saying a joke that usually ends up all over his monitor. So we'll see if we can get there today.
Oh, that would finish out the day perfectly.
That's right. I've got a Balmore Isla Scotch here. Just a little bit of couple cubes of ice in it there. The Isla Scotch, of course, known for being something that slaps you in the face with a big ball of peat by some angry Scotsman. So if you're into that, it's awesome. If you're not, probably tastes like Band-Aids and dirt. So
I can appreciate the Isla's as long as I stretch the sippings far apart. Yeah.
That's my goal today here. So we'll see how far I get through it. So moving on to our topics for today, we need like little sound bites for our topics or something. Mistakes, ways we screwed up, and then topics for the day or something. I don't know how we would do that.
That would
somebody
be cool.
With a better voice than me to do that. Maybe we'll get who's the fellow that does UFC and all that? Bruce Buffer.
Yep.
Once we get up to 200 fans, I think Bruce will probably be taking a look at us.
surely by then he'd be interested.
Yeah, that's for sure. So topics, we'll just go with me until we get there. Sherwin, you had a brand new experience on Twitter this last week. Now, I don't, the rule number one of the internet is don't feed the trolls. But hey, this is a first timer for you. So I'd like to hear about the experience. I was following along on Twitter, and of course, we're not going to name the name and give the person the glory. But hey, I thought it was pretty cool.
It was an interesting experience because once we got 2 or 3 replies in the queue, I thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity to kill somebody with kindness.
And you did.
And just really see through their vitriol and seek to understand what their problem was to begin with. And at this stage, I don't even remember what the original point of contention was.
I do, actually. Evidently, you do not know the rules around green-white checker. That you're just and you have no idea how those rules work.
Right.
So that was the point of contention, at least.
So I tweeted at Odd Steve. That's Steve O'Donnell, the one of the competition directors in NASCAR. Maybe he's the competition director. I'm not exactly sure what his role is.
Huge props to him. He's all over Twitter, and he responds. I've sent several tweets. He's favored them. He's responded to me. He solicits questions from folks. It's pretty cool that he's on there interacting with everybody. I like that.
Yeah, so my tweet to him was something along the lines of, and you only have 140 characters, so it's not like you could be very eloquent on Twitter. So I just tend to be direct to him and say, why not think about a red flag so we don't run all these laps under caution. If we know we've identified a cleanup situation that's not going to be quick and we're inside a certain target lap number, I don't care what it is, if it's 50, if it's 30, if it's 20, it's 10. But just say, all right, inside of 10 or 20 laps, if we have a caution that requires cleanup, we're going to red flag the race. And you could still do the green-white checker, but just let's let the race have a chance to play out on its own instead of riding around under caution all the way up to the green-white checker. Yeah,
and of course, trying to say that in 140 words sounded like it made it look like you didn't know what you were talking about. According to at least one person, I thought it was pretty crystal clear there, but you certainly got the troll. If it was troll bait, it's definitely set the line.
Well, you know what it was? It's a really good learning experience for me that written language is interpreted by the reader, which I've already known that from work emails. You know how that goes. But the thing that I need to understand going forward is, can I look at the tweet I'm about to tweet and understand if there's multiple angles it could be interpreted, and then find out ways to eliminate that fogginess or lack of clarity. Not that I'm concerned with this one troll, but it was obvious at that point he's made his mind up. He was the smartest guy in the room, and I can say without a doubt he's not.
Well, he was the only guy in his room, I imagine.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's no way to convey to somebody via Twitter that you actually have a really good understanding of what's going on, particularly with this kind of stuff, because, I mean, this is the kind of stuff we study.
Yeah.
I sit in front of a monitor all day on the weekends just downloading NASCAR content to my brain.
Nerd.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I really like that idea, red flagging the race. And, I mean, that's what they do all over dirt tracks and all over the small tracks around the country, is not red flagging, but they'll run laps and just not count them.
Right.
And in other series as well, other big series as well. So I think that's a good idea. And like you said, keep the green-white checkered fine. And if they throw the white flag, then, that's it. Just same way. Just let's not run all those out so that we get to a green-white checker situation in so many races.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the expense of our favorite driver, the Truck Series would have benefited from that kind of a rule, sure. I think, at Charlotte a couple weeks ago. So, I'm kind of in for that. I think, when the green, white, and checker rule came out and the 2-wide restarts and we were doing it in the trucks, it was like, wow, this is really awesome. And I don't think 2-wide restarts should ever go away. I like that.
Yeah, that was a great change.
the wave around and the lucky dog, I think those are good rules. They're great rules for sponsors.
Yeah, sponsors and safety and everything else for that matter.
Right. But maybe it is time to take a look at that green, white checker rule and say, do we really need it anymore? Has it served its purpose? You know, because racing for points, for all 36, obviously served its purpose and is gone from the sport.
Yep. So that's a great lead-in, I think, into this whole driver engagement platform that they've announced. We have, who is it, Tony Stewart, Dale Jr., was Jeff Gordon in that? I couldn't remember.
I don't remember if it was Jeff, but I know it was Hamlin for sure.
Yeah. So tell us about that. What's the story there? What do you think?
Well, it sounds like at some point NASCAR had asked the drivers to sort of submit a vote for who they would like to speak for them in an open forum type meeting. And NASCAR's been talking about open forum town hall style meetings for, I don't know, better part of a decade now, it seems like. And I think they've decided that they really want to have a smaller group and pare down the amount of questions that come in so they can really find something to work on. And maybe they're going to meet once a quarter. Maybe they'll decide to meet more often than that. I wish they had been more open about it to us. I wish we didn't have to find out about it in this weird way that we seem to always have to find out about NASCAR stuff.
Yeah, what were did they say what the topics were or anything, or are they just kind of saying, yeah, we're talking to people?
Well, I think the main topics were the tires and the schedule.
Okay. Tires and schedule. So they didn't talk about aero. They didn't talk about engines.
I think those were secondary topics. But, downforce. But I based on what I read, it looked like the main topics were what can we do with the tires, and is there anything we can do with the schedule?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know you and I have some particular interests in the schedule situation, and we'll get into that topic eventually. But along those same lines, you and I had a great discussion this past weekend when I was hanging out at your house. We recorded the PETM on location, and we had listened to, on the Marty and McGee podcast, Brad Keselowski come on. Now, at the beginning of this season, when they announced the new rule changes, I was actually kind of happy with them. I liked taking down the horsepower a little bit. I liked that they were addressing aero in a way. I don't think I understood at the time what that meant necessarily. I was thinking, well, bunch these guys up a little more. That sounds good, and have some good side-by-side racing with a lot of passing. Well, it turns out that the problem is they can go wide open now across through all the corners in a lot of these super speedways where they couldn't before. Atlanta, Texas, all of our so-called mile and a half or cookie cutter, if you want to call them that. But I particularly like those races. But Brad Keselowski come on, and I thought he made a good point, which is these cars are a bit easier to drive this year. These things are so easy that really it's anybody's race, and everybody's running up front, and then aero makes so much more difference right now. And so the guy up front, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, where guy up front, he's just going to pull away. And Brad Keselowski said, and I think it was after the All-Star race when he speeded off a pit road, and he said, well, I knew it was either get in front of Denny Hamlin or lose. And he got in front of Denny Hamlin, but that was a speeding violation. So those are pretty big comments. And the question that we came out of that was, do we want more drivers capable of winning, or do we want the best driver to win? And I think what you and I had said was what we'd like to see is a car that is too much for every racetrack. We want the car to be able or I guess the driver has to work the car to be able to run it. It shouldn't be wide open all the way around the track. That's too easy. There shouldn't be one line. That's too easy. Everybody follows the same line. Everybody's wide open the whole time. Guy out front pulls out. Obviously, we don't want that. But we want a car that is too hard, too tough to tame, we'll say. How about that? To take a moniker from a racetrack we love there. But, so I just spat out a bunch of stuff there, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think well, especially the guys that grew up in sprint cars on dirt,
Mm-hmm.
Tony and Jeff and Ryan Newman and Casey Kane, Clint Boyer racing dirt late models, and same with Carl. They're all used to these cars that don't ever grip up.
Mm-hmm.
They don't ever have any rear grip, and
Yeah.
it forces you to get really creative with your line, and it just seems like that's better for racing. When they have too much power to put the throttle down in the corner, I think you see better racing, because you got to get real creative with your front end geometry and figure out which line your driver likes to run. Before we went to the COT, Denny Hamlin was really good at Loudon, and he had a technique they call late apex, where he would run up against the wall coming into the corner and dive down into the banking and exit the turn way low.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else seemed to be able to do that. Well, kudos to them for figuring that out.
Yeah, and that's that's that driver's style, and so exactly. You get different styles once you have the cars like that. You get different setups. Now, what happens sometimes though is that some guy will hit the setup, and you've got the right driver with the right setup, right car for his track, and you get what you and I saw live in Atlanta. I don't remember the year. I'm going to say 08, maybe 07. I'm probably wrong, with Kurt Busch winning the race by – I mean, he led every lap that counted or that mattered. He didn't lead every lap, but, pit stops and all that going on. But he led most of the laps, and he won by, a half a track. So that's sort of the trade-off. I don't know where maybe you have to have those things. Maybe you have to have those races in order to have the package that's right for the rest of the races. I don't know.
Well, I guess I would say, at what point they've made so many changes for the fans? The fans have continually said they're not thrilled with what they see. Who knows what the fans actually want, because it's hard for us to figure out what we exactly want. But I would say that you have, especially even now with the parity there is in road course racing, you have 6 races every year now that 25 different cars can win. Mm-hmm. That's plate races, 2 each, and road courses. Do we need to have – does every other track need to have potential for 20, 25 winners, different winners? I don't know. My engineering brain just gets hung up in, you know what, it is boring when Kurt Busch leads 267 of 325 laps. But, man, did they get it right.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah. And, I mean, let's not take anything away from him. He had to run that line and that setup, and they had to make the right changes and everything every lap. Obviously, there were cautions, brought the field back together. He pulls back out. So they were hitting on all cylinders in terms of – or firing on all cylinders, I should say, in terms of – that's a little –
that's my pet peeve.
Yeah. Sure. And at least I caught myself. So firing on all cylinders in terms of, again, all the things I named before, the driver hitting all of his lines and hitting them hard and not going in too deep or anything, not losing seconds here and there, the pit crew, the car, everything, and the crew chief making all the right calls.
Well, there's something to be said for getting all the people involved. I think, and you see, ironically, I think when you see a car take off and leave everybody, that's when the team has really done their work.
Yeah.
We talk about, these last-minute pit stops when these guys going over the wall and they bust off an 11.3 when everybody else was 11.9. Yeah, that's awesome in terms of like an athletic performance and an in-the-moment performance, clutch performance. But if you lap the field, buddy, your team has kicked everybody else's butt.
Yeah. Are we graduating a little bit in terms of being fans? Is this something that, when you're watching younger, you want to see wrecks, right? When you're a little bit older and okay, well, the wreck thing, you kind of get tired of that because, hey, I have to watch 499 other miles of this race if you're going to get into it. So you want to see this side-by-side crazy racing. And then later on you say, you know what, I want to see the best guy win. That's what I want to see. I want to see the best guy and the best car and the best crew and all that win. So I don't know. Of course, I'll be hypocritical when we start talking about Daytona and stuff about what I want to see there. So I don't know. That's a hard one. So we'll leave that one with a big question mark, I think, in our brains.
I think it's okay for individual fandom to evolve, and even evolve week to week, not just year to year or generation to generation. I think it's okay to say you like something on Thursday and then Sunday you see it and you go, oh, I didn't like that. Or to go on Thursday, and I'm not super excited about this race this weekend, and then go, wow, okay, well, they changed my mind. This was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So last week we gave some props to Indy. This week, do a little maybe trolling of our own here. Sherwin had noticed something on the Indy website that was kind of funny, and maybe we'll post it to the Twitter and post the overlay. You sent me the link to it, and I messed around in Photoshop and put an overlay of it. But tell folks what that was all about.
Well, so we had that conversation about how many oval tracks Indy was going to run this year because, Indy 500 excited us for what that racing package looks like on an oval track. And I said, man, they just about abandoned that format of racing, which I was happy to see. I think I said 3 to 5. I was happy to see there are actually 6. Okay. What I was not happy to see was how awful their schematics for the racetracks were on the NASCAR or the IndyCar website. Their official website has the worst schematics of Texas and Iowa Speedway that you will ever see.
Those are really
kindergarten.
Funny. Whoever's job it is to draw the tracks, and it's only on your monitor, depending on the size of your monitor, but it's only maybe 2 inches by 2 inches square. But what they draw inside that square is not the track that they're trying to convey.
It's close. It looked like the only thing they got right was the flat spot of the quad oval and where it starts to angle off and on both elbows. Everything else was considerably bad.
They just kind of gave up, I guess. He started drawing half the track and said, we'll just cut it across here. I wonder what racing on a track like the one they drew would be. That was like it was well over 90-degree turn.
Well, it's those turns into and out of 1, 2,
1 and 2.
3, and 4 would have been absolute insanity.
Yeah, carnage. You'd have to have 50-degree banking to make it something.
Yeah, on that note, I actually have an inject here.
Yep.
I had a brief conversation with Andrew Manis via Twitter. Recall, he used to be NASCARnomics.
Oh, yeah.
He tweeted out something about the aero package. Now, you know what? I hope I'm not giving the wrong person credit. It very well could have been Weaver. Mm-hmm. May have been Matt Weaver. Hopefully one of those two will listen and yell at us. But
yeah,
it was that the package, the aero package they were going to bring to Indy suggested that they wanted to see pack racing.
Huh.
And I was like, my response on Twitter immediately was, yeah, last time we did that was at Las Vegas and the Dan Weldon thing.
Yeah.
Because plate racing, air quotes, with Indy cars doesn't work at all.
Yeah. That's not what I'm watching IndyCar for anyway. I'm watching to see, like what we saw back at the Indy 500. Like we said, that got us excited there.
Yeah, you want to see a lead change down the back stretch and then a lead change again coming out of 4 and then maybe change again before you cross the line.
Yeah. On the same Indy storyline here, so there was a short interview with Helio Castroneves, and he had said, I would love to race in NASCAR. That would be awesome. And he talked to Roger Penske about 10 years ago, and Roger Penske said no. He talked to him about 5 years ago, and Roger Penske said no. And he talked to him about a week ago, and Roger Penske, it was he said no. So what do you think? Would you like to see Helio in the series, or is he going to follow the way of all the other IndyCar drivers sans Tony Stewart?
Well, I think if he wanted to give it a shot, he needs to go directly to Brad and ask him if he'll build him a truck and try that.
Has there been any Indy guys go into one of the whatever you want to call it B-League series like that?
That's a really good question. I'm not prepared to discuss it. I want to say no because I feel like all the Indy guys that have come over had sponsorship behind them, so at least they were starting the nationwide series.
Yeah,
which exactly. Is maybe why most of them didn't have a lot of success. Because the trucks are way different than nationwide, and nationwide is way different than Cup. But they say that obviously there's value in trucks because that's where all these young guys are coming from now. Yeah,
and I mean they've got camps, they've got everything. I mean straight from the petty driving experience. Somebody sees something they like, they say something to somebody, and somebody else, etc. Not to mention all the guys coming up through all the local tracks and everything. So, yeah, I would love to see it. I think more crossover is great. Every time there's a crossover, there's more attention to both sports, especially like the Kurt Busch thing last year, running both. I don't know why we can't make that happen every year with at least somebody. So I would love to see more of it.
Well, and I doubt we'll ever have any subscribers that are mostly IndyCar fans to this podcast, just because we're probably a little hard on them. But if you're an IndyCar fan and you don't think Kurt Busch has drove your ratings and your attention, you're crazy.
Oh yeah,
that was huge.
That was huge. So yeah, I'm all for it. If Roger Penske's listening, go ahead and give him maybe a maybe next time. How about that? How about a maybe? Or like you said, go on to Brad Kay and see if he'll throw some coin at him in the truck series.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other rhetoric coming out of IndyCar this week was, and this may be on your list, I may be circumventing your list, but Sebastian Bourdais. He had some very interesting comments after being ousted from F1 after only 1 year. He had some disparaging comments to say about F1 and the competition within the sport. I think his rhetoric was mostly around he who spends the most money wins, and that happens in a lot of sports.
Yeah.
But the lack of passing and that sort of thing, he said what, Monaco turned into a big parking lot with a bunch of rich people sitting around watching or something like that. Maybe yeah. He said Monaco has become a parking lot. There's no passing, and the IndyCar offers something a little more. Maybe not offering a driver a whole lot of financial compensation, but the racing is more competitive.
Yeah, certainly more compelling for me to watch. So let's talk about Dover. We saw that race. What did you think of that race? I've seen some reactions on Twitter, and I was actually surprised by what I saw on Twitter from some of the, I'll say, pundits. But I'll get your opinion first, and I'll go after that.
Well, I thought it was a good race from the standpoint of the cars getting fast towards the end, getting faster than they were in the beginning. I hate it for Truex. He had such a good race. They should rename Dover the house where Jimmy Johnson wins all the races at.
Yeah, that'd take up a lot of room on the ticker and on the sign out front, but I think he deserves it at this point, huh?
Yeah, I mean, last week in the podcast I said, you probably should pick Jimmy because he's won 9 times, which is the most of anybody in the sport ever. And then he wins number 10, so that pretty much validates where I was going there. Yeah.
Did you start Jimmy?
Oh, you bet I did.
Yep, same here. Yeah, like we said, especially I think we had said he qualified 14th, so that was totally a good pick, both in a great driver at that course and the fact that he's you get those points for 14th and up, moving up 14 spots. So definitely a no-brainer in the old fantasy league there.
Yeah, I think he scored 61 points, and I just had a gut feeling, and maybe I was just trying to send positive vibes, but our driver had a great weekend. I started him, and he moved up 20 positions?
Yeah. He qualified junk and
25th to 4th. That's not bad.
Top 5 right there. I think that's another discussion for another one where we can get into the point system and all that. I wish I could be more excited. Maybe the excitement there is that, hey, our driver is moving up a bit. He's finding some stuff. He's working with I'll say new crew chief. Obviously, he's been with the same guys for a while. This is just his previous engineer now in Kevin Hamlin. Not Kevin Hamlin. Did I say it right?
Keith Rodden.
Keith Rodden. Kevin Hamlin's his spotter with Keith Rodden. So, maybe starting to fire on a few more cylinders, if you will, to hopefully redeem myself on that saying. And so, yeah, it feels good that he's moving up, but, of course, everybody's chasing after that elusive win.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is where we segue to Pocono or not. I'll look to your
the only other note that I have written down about Dover is talking about attendance.
Oh, no, let's hit that first.
Yeah. What's going on?
There wasn't anybody there. There was nobody at Dover.
That's a bummer because speaking of Pocono and Dover, I mean, talk about bucket list tracks right there. Those places are just legendary tracks. And the fact that they can't fill the seats is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and we need to have the flip side conversation about Pocono because there's actually a lot of positive stuff with Pocono. But Dover, I can't understand. I guess it's pretty obvious that nobody in D.C. cares about racing, or else they can't afford it, which is a surprise to me. I would expect that, while D.C. has their crime situation, the surrounding area is full of affluent people who obviously don't care about racing. So I'm not sure. I mean, if I'm going to be objective and see what has happened to my home track, there's no way Dover can continue to have 2 races.
Yeah.
Not with that attendance.
No, absolutely not. Unless I don't know what the TV numbers say, and that's what it's all about nowadays. They're not as worried about filling butts in the seats, versus having that TV money, which, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the thing about that concerns me is the tracks only get 35% of the TV money. And I know it's a lot of money, but, I don't know.
What do you think? Maybe that's something we should nerd out on this weekend. If they don't put a single butt in the seat and they don't have to fill they don't have to hire that would mean 1/10 of their staff and 1/10 of the cleanup or staff. I wonder what that looks like comparatively,
I don't know. I just know this, and then maybe because I pay more attention to things that I hold dear, which is what most humans do. But I have heard for 3 or 4 years now about awful attendance at Atlanta, and I haven't seen nearly that kind of vitriol about Dover. And there weren't 30,000 people at that race. If you look at that blimp shot, there's no way you couldn't tell me there was 30,000 people at that race.
Yeah. What's that track seat? Do you remember?
Well, before they started their teardown,
took out 17,000 seats. Yeah.
Before they started their teardown, it was 130K.
Oh wow! That was way too much anyway. That was at the boon or the peak of the NASCAR fad. Another topic we'll get into at some point. But yeah, they're at the peak. I think we have a lot of great topics for the 6 weeks that we're off in the winter, so we'll have to battle those.
That's a good time for those.
Yeah, for those weeks when we're hunting for topics and really picking at them. So that brings us to Pocono. Coming up with Pocono. So we didn't actually. What I didn't talk about at Dover, I did want to talk about because we kind of hinted at it last week. I had said I want to see guys. When I see guys gamble, I want to see sometimes people gamble and lose. And I think we saw that this time, with the pit strategy for, was it Hamlin and Truex? Is that who was running out front for a while, just trying to pull a caution, never did.
Yep.
So we saw the gamble not pay off that time. And I think that's what's exciting racing right there. Are they going to make it? Or are they not? Is there going to be a caution? Hey, there wasn't a caution this time. And then we, of course, had the Jimmy Johnson show, but I can't be mad at that. based on the racing that we saw. And then we had the green white checkered. We had there was a chance. It was side by side, Jimmy and Casey. Of course, we were rooting like heck for Casey, but Jimmy had the stronger car. Casey was on the bad line there. But yeah, I thought the race went well, and the ending was exactly what I was asking for last time.
Yeah, I thought it was a good race. I mean, obviously, if your guy wrecks out or your gal wrecks out early, you're going to be disappointed. Maybe you're going to turn it off, or maybe you're going to watch it and just still be disappointed. But
yeah,
Dover was fun, and I thought we actually stayed pretty clean in terms of wrecks, which now that I look back on all the data that's been provided by drivers when you have a clean race, a lot of times that means they're on such rocky ground with their car that they're just not willing to take any chances. So I will see if any of that stuff comes out.
Yeah. So, and I had said at the very beginning when talking about Dover, what did I say? I just lost my train of thought. Holy mackerel. Must have been the scotch there. Oh, well, I'm empty now. So
nobody was there?
There was that. Remember that time when nobody was there? So anyway, heck with it. Let's move on to Pocono.
Pocono,
another, like we said before, bucket list track. Going up into the Poconos there and seeing that race on the Tricky Triangle. I think it'll be a great race. You hinted at it before, the sort of turnaround of Pocono. So.
Yeah, so, and I don't even know if I'd call it turnaround. Ryan McGee wrote a fantastic article about, he's like, remember when everybody was talking about how Pocono and Dover were going to lose races? And everybody said, well, there's no way Dover's going to lose races because they're putting 130 butts in the seats twice a year. And Pocono's too long and blah, 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 blah. Well, the guy that owned Pocono ceded his responsibilities as a track owner to his children within about 6 months or so of his passing. And part of what they did, Brandon Igdalski is the guy's name. I follow him on Twitter. He's 39 years old. He is the CEO of the track. Part of what they did was to take in some data from NASCAR and not do what everybody else did, and this goes back to his grandfather about not expanding when everybody was expanding. They stayed that front stretch straight away and said, you know what, we like what we got. I can't remember what it holds. I think maybe 65,000, something like that. And they were really proactive with soft wall. They stayed true to what they are, and now they've installed a new tunnel to make the entrance into the track even more accessible for the fans that like to camp on the infield and the teams and everybody else. And that Pocono was not going anywhere, folks. They did shorten the races, which I hate to see, because if NASCAR started a race at 10 a.m. and it didn't end until 6 p.m. later that afternoon, I'd be fine with that.
I do think you're in the minority on at least those times, but me and you have talked about it, certainly agree that, shortening them from 500 down to 400 is, we like to see a 500-mile race, but I understand that they have to, as much as they have to put butts in the seats, they got to put eyeballs on the TV.
Yep, absolutely. And now that we watch them, and it's been a couple years, and we're used to it, it's not a big deal. And you just know that on a Sunday afternoon when they run at Pocono, you know what? You're only going to have about 2.5 hours you have to commit to the race, which can be a good thing. You could go get you a round of golf in after that race, probably.
That'd be
summertime.
That'd be a tricky round of golf.
Well, I'd be calling Uber, asking him where I could put my clubs.
That's right. So, the one thing with Pocono, don't we have another Pocono race coming up in about 6 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah. They're 6 weeks apart.
Yeah. So, always find that interesting. Always impressed that they can get that many people. And you said it might only be 65,000, whatever it is, but that, they show up and then they show up again. So kudos to those fans. And of course, that's, like we say, a bucket list track. And when I talk about bucket list track, folks, we do have our excuse me, Sherwin and I have our bucket list tracks, and we stick true to them. We've gone to a different track every year for the past 4 or 5 years now, and continuing to do that. And we're starting to get to the point where we have to go on airplanes, et cetera, and find some more creative options there. But when I say bucket list track, absolutely, a track that's on our short list to go to.
Yeah, I mean, we can go ahead and name that short list for me. It's Loudon, Phoenix, Pocono, Dover, and Watkins Glen.
Yeah.
Those are mine.
Absolutely. I would throw Sonoma in there.
Yeah, I mean, Watkins Glen and Sonoma are interchangeable for me.
Yeah. Well, Sherwin, that's all I've got to talk about. What'd you bring for us?
Well, let's just – I mean, we kind of do a pick 'em.
You're right. You're right. I thought about it, and I know who I've got. So I'll go first this time. I keep making you go first on all these things.
Sure.
I've got Redemption. I've got Joey Logano.
All right. That's a great pick. He's been fast there before. He has won there, although it was in the Home Depot Joe Gibbs car. And he won it outright. That was his validation as a NASCAR driver, like we talked about with Juan Pablo. You need to win on one of these fast ovals to get that validation. So on that note, I will say that the guys that have been fast there in recent memory are his teammate, Brad Keselowski, in the White Deuce. And guys that have really been putting the heat on the last couple of years is, Junior swept last year. And we can talk about how he got lucky with Brad Keselowski overheating with the stuff on his grill, but Junior won that race, and then he won the second one without any help.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to Stevie on that setup, and good luck to him in the booth this weekend.
Oh yeah.
NBC's is on the box now, and Jeff has surprised everybody with a win there recently. And Casey, how can you forget that drive on the outside through turn 2?
Oh man,
to take that win.
Yeah.
That was his third, I think, at Pocono. So it may have been his second. Y'all can cuss me out if you want. I've been bad about adding a win to everybody's registrar there, but he'll be fast. He ran like 97 fastest laps around there when they broke a transmission a couple years ago. So,
well, who you got?
I think. Golly, that's a good question. I really didn't prepare for that because I wanted to just talk about the guys I knew I was fast. I think for me, I don't want us to get all the way to Homestead and Jeff have not won in his last year, so I'm going to go with Jeff Gordon.
All right. Like you said, great pick. He's run there fast recently, so awesome. What else you got for us, man?
Well, I don't have anything else on my page.
So I knew we wanted to throw that shout out to Women's World Cup.
Oh yeah, man! I got so distracted by all that technology problems we were having.
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody.
Women's World Cup. Why not?
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that.
And if people don't care, they can turn it off now. But don't turn it off now, guys. You made it this far.
No, it's not worth it. You can listen for 30 more seconds, or whatever it ends up being. So the Women's World Cup kicks off to Saturday at 5 p.m. with Canada, the host nation. I don't remember who they're playing. Sorry. 5 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. And then for us –
it's in Australia, right? Or are you saying that's –
No, the opener for the Cup.
Oh, okay. I got
Saturday with Canada. Yep. The host nation always opens.
Yep, okay.
But the United States, our girls, they kick off at 6:30 against Australia on Monday, June 8th on Fox Sports 1.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Well, guys, that does it for this episode. Sherwin, it's been awesome.
We did all right, I think.
We every week I get more and more excited about doing this and getting better setups and everything. I ordered a real microphone online, so we'll see if we actually get that so I'm not just talking in my speakers here. Sherwin's got his whole headset deal there, so we should be sounding like pros here soon, at least in terms of audio quality. We'll still sound like idiots on our conversation.
That's right. You'll be able to hear us now talk about all this dumb stuff we're saying.
That's right. Well, guys, we really appreciate you listening. Love the fans out there. Love each and every one of you. Hey, tweet us. We're at PETM Podcast. on Twitter, and we'll be throwing a few tidbits out there. Hey, let's try to remember to put that picture up of what is it, the IndyCar stuff, the Texas and Iowa.
Yes, the overlay, the schematic.
The overlay.
I'm looking at it right now on the computer, and it's like, I mean, just no effort at all.
Awesome. All right, guys, we really appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week.